This is wildlife biologist Eric Orford with Wild in New Hampshire. Hey, I'm back at Turtletown Pond, Concord, New Hampshire today with New Hampshire Fish and Game fisheries biologist Matt Carpenter. Hey, Matt, you've been with the department a while. I remember I've been retired for 14 years. You were a bio aid over in the Region 3 office for a while. How far does that go back?
That was 2001, maybe.
Okay, so
I think, yeah.
get out. Talking 20 years now. Wow,
Yeah.
good for you. Matt, I love Turtletown Pond. I've been coming here for, 50 or more years, fished, and my good friend that I went to college with, Bill Ingham, he lived on the other side of the pond, so I hunted the pond and deer hunted all around here. And today, you've got some kind of contraption here, Matt. Go over and take a look at that and tell me what it's all about and what are the objectives of what you're doing here at Turtletown Pond today.
Sure. So right here we have, this is an American eel trap. And we're trying to catch eels on their downstream migration. And the reason we do that is because as part of I'm with the fish conservation program, and American eels have been in decline throughout their range throughout North America.
I mean, there was talk about putting them on the endangered species list for a while, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. Yeah, they were a candidate species for the endangered species list. They didn't end up being listed, but they did recognize a lot of issues, especially with what we deal with a lot is mortality as they go downstream through
hydropower. Yeah.
And so all the eels come up, they're born somewhere in the Sargasso Sea. Nobody knows where. There's the spawning grounds out there. All of the eels basically up and down the Atlantic coast come out of freshwater rivers, and the adults meet in this one spot to spawn. And then the juveniles.
How old are the females, by the way? That's kind of an interesting thing. That some research in Maine found.
They'll live in fresh water anywhere. Sometimes it's as little as 10 years, but it can be up to 30 years.
Up to 30 years. And mostly females come to the freshwater, right?
Yeah, well, mostly females. The further upstream, they actually don't determine their sex until they get to a certain size. And so the ones that move upstream get bigger and become females. The ones that stay down the estuary usually stay male and they're small.
So they can identify as a female or a male.
They're very weird species. Wow. But they migrate by the billions on ocean currents from the Sargasso, and they move up when they're little, they're called elvers. They're little tiny eels, and they move up as far as they can up into fresh water. And they
climb over the dam somehow.
Sometimes they can actually, if there's a little bit of wetted surface in the dam, they can actually climb.
I have watched them by the thousands going up over the Bellamy Dam in Madbury. Unbelievable one night. A spectacle I will never forget.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So we've been monitoring, so the dams have been working hard to provide passage, upstream passage, and we're trying to monitor the results of that, whether that's resulting in an increase in the population, and also work with them to reduce mortality downstream.
Okay.
They've been doing studies, and some of what they do is they'll shut down for certain nights, and so that nights when eels are likely to be moving.
Okay, great.
Which is typically, when it rains in the fall.
So it's this time of year.
Yeah. So what we're doing is trying to figure out, when do eels move? What are the migration cues? How many do we have up in these ponds? So we can help guide so we can help make recommendations to protect them on their downstream migration.
So how does this trap work? Tell me a little bit about this trap.
So this is actually a new design. It's an experimental design. We have another trap that we monitor right now over in Kimball Pond. Very simple design. It's just a rack below a dam spillway. Yep. And the water flows over the dam. The water goes through the rack, but the eels get stuck. But the problem with that design is it's labor intensive in terms of cleaning it.
A lot of debris.
And you always have flow issues. Today we had a little bit of blowout because that thunderstorm we had brought the flow up unanticipated, and we didn't set the flow right. So the idea here is we're trying to be able to set the trap and not have to deal with the flow and debris issues as much.
Okay.
Which is why we hung the cage from the top rather than have it sitting in the water.
Okay.
So this is not set right now, but
You'll just drop that lip down and
yeah,
start
we'll drop
collecting.
that lip down, and then the water will flow, but most of the water falls through those holes.
Yeah.
The eel keeps going and ends up in the trap.
Nice.
That's the idea.
All right, there's the trap.
So today what I'm doing is I'm putting in, because the trap's out of the water, I gotta make sure there's water in the trap, so I'm gonna put a siphon hose that'll suck water from the pond and actually make sure there's always water in the trap itself.
Okay, all right.
That way we're not dependent on water flowing down that ramp.
How big are the eels when they migrate out? And they change form. I mean, eels are such an amazing animal. They actually change form when they start migrating. So not only can they choose to be a male or a female, they can choose how they look.
Yeah, when they're ready to go out, they become what people call a silver eel. So their color changes, the pupil of their eye
stop
gets
eating.
bigger, they stop eating. They're basically just full of eggs, and they're ready to go to the Sargasso Sea. And
And then they spawn and die.
yeah, they only have one chance to get
Yep,
there.
yep.
Which is a lot of the reasons why they're probably in decline, because you can have whole year classes that don't, where not enough get back.
Not enough water. We're drought. Imagine a drought.
Yeah. So you need.
So we've had 4 droughts in the last 5 years, by my count.
You need enough eels getting back to the spawning ground to maintain the population, and those numbers might be huge
Right.
because of the amount of time it takes, and just their life cycle is so complicated. One chance to spawn in their whole life.
All right.
So the eels that we find could be. This is one of the things we're interested in. How big are they? What's the density?
How old are they?
How
maybe?
old are they? We have a lab in Rhode Island that will do odorless for us.
Okay.
So we've done a little bit of that. I know in the Connecticut River, a lot of the eels that were coming out of the lower watershed were a little bit younger than they thought.
Okay.
Closer to 10, 12 years.
Okay.
But up in the St. Lawrence River, you can have them 30 to 40 years old.
Wow.
So it all depends on their size.
Yeah.
We've seen quite the variation in eels that we've tried traps in other rivers. South Cook River, we had a trap up on Winnipesaukee.
Okay.
And now we have these two. So we keep, we're trying to refine our techniques.
Okay.
But we do notice a big difference. The Winnipesaukee eels can be up to 4 feet long.
Wow.
It's really big.
So those are 40-year-old fish, probably.
They could
close
be really
to.
old.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow.
Where the Kimball Pond in Black Brook, they were more like, we usually go by millimeters, so 700 millimeters would be about maybe, 2.5, 3 feet.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see what we get here. The South Cook River, they were a little bit bigger
Okay.
than that, closer to 3, 3.5.
Wow. Wow. Nice.
So they're good sized fish when they're ready to migrate.
Yep. Yep. Tell me a little about this year's. We'll step back from the water, make it easier to hear. Tell me a little bit about this year's